This is our first live and in-person inspiration session for 2026, specially created by the Elevate team, ensuring that the Elevate community receives the most valuable and impactful tools, resources, and inspiration. The presentation referred to in this session can be downloaded from the show notes. This podcast was recorded at White Rabbit Studios in Shoreditch with a live audience.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Amanda, who will be introducing Zoe and Nic. Amanda Keegan, come on up, welcome to the stage. Senior Associate, Practice Training and Events at the Association for Foreign Banks.
Thanks, Max.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you. So Pete told me at 2:00 this afternoon that I was doing this, so slightly nerve-wracking, but thank you for a very warm welcome. Our guest speakers tonight are the brilliant Zoe Tuffs from Times 10 Coaching and People and Culture Strategy Consultant, Nic Neal. So over the next 45 minutes, Zoe and Nic, with the help of their expert panel, will create a practical and honest conversation about building a career path that feels compelling, rewarding, and genuinely your own. Using real stories and different career perspectives, they'll explore how growth can look different depending on your role, circumstances, and stage of life. The key message is simple: you cannot pull every lever at once. Growth is about being strategic, intentional, and selective about what you focus on, what you protect, and what you're willing to try next. So please welcome to the stage Zoe and Nic.
What a gorgeous, warm welcome. Thank you so much. I could get used to this, having like a little hype person beforehand. Thank you so much. Did such a wonderful job. No need to be nervous at all. You're a pro. Well done.
Yes, well done, Amanda.
Thank you also for the MJ walk-on. That was a request from me. Anybody else got MJ fever at the moment? I'm full on MJ. Right, we're going to get into this because we are supposed to be on for 45 minutes. It's very likely it could go on a little longer, so I'm going to try and speed it up for you. But today we are talking about owning your growth, and we are going to be talking about some different concepts that we can all lean into in order to really leverage the career that we want and really lean into the growth goals that we set for ourselves. But we are going to be joined by a wonderful set of panelists. Zoe, do you want to do some introductions?
Yeah, it's really important to us at Elevate that we represent our industry voices, and we've got three incredible panelists in the spirit of changing up the format. Tonight we're going to hear from Mwathi Muri-Gakonga, who is a face in our NewGen community, one of the first graduates of our NewGen cohort. We're going to welcome Sarah Godden, who is Head of Events at Wonderland, and Jen Bonassera, who is our Senior Events Director at Condé Nast. Now, each of these incredible panellists have got a fascinating career story to share. So I won't be sharing their biographies here now. Their stories will come to life as we navigate our way through the session. But feel free to chat to them after the session because they're super interesting. And I'm really excited to welcome them onto the stage. Woo!
Thank you so much. Right, I'm going to get stuck in, if that's okay, while these guys just get settled. So there's a great deal of talent in this industry and a lot of ambitious people. I believe there's some great talent even just in the room today. But even the most talented and ambitious people can really feel stuck sometimes. And if you find yourself in a lovely kind of full-time permanent employment position, it might be that kind of promotion conversation that feels like it's going nowhere. Or if you're a freelancer, it might be the pipeline that feels like it's starting to dry up, or the big brief that hasn't quite come in. If you're maybe returning to the industry after a break, it can sometimes feel like the world has turned completely without you even realizing. And if you're brand new to the industry, that stuck moment can just be those multiple applications that feel like they're going nowhere. So nobody can ever avoid that stuck moment. And today's conversation is all about navigating that and figuring out what the pathway to growth really, really looks like. And when we talk about growth, this is quite a familiar picture. And this is the kind of picture that probably a lot of us grew up with, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with a stepped ladder when it comes to career growth. In fact, it's probably the way that I started my career. You work really hard, you hope somebody notices, you get a promotion, the next opportunity presents itself, so on. Welcome, come and sit down. I'm joking. And that's the pattern. That's the rinse and repeat pattern that tends to happen for many of us. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it's not really all that reflective of what real life is actually like. And really, our career path tends to take a slightly more squiggly pattern. And if you don't know about squiggly careers, I would really encourage you all to go and listen to the podcast and go and view the content, because actually for people in our kind of line of work that really care about personal and professional development, there's some really interesting insights and frameworks and things that are very, very useful and really meaningful to use in your everyday life. But the idea is that the pathway to growth is a bit meandering, and there's twists and there's turns, and we change direction, and we might have a family, and we might all of a sudden pivot because the market told us so. And what this kind of allows us to do is have a little bit more agency over that, and gives us a bit more permission to say that that's actually okay. In fact, if anything, that's probably the way it should be happening. And I think the interesting thing about growth is that a lot of us tend to associate growth with the next promotion, the next rung on the ladder. And I think we're doing ourselves a massive disservice if that's the case, because really we're overlooking all of the wonderful moments that we could really be embracing that really do equal growth. It might be, for instance, that growth for you is taking on more challenging types of work, or the type of work that you're doing is more values-led, or it's more purpose-driven. Or you might find that it's a case of going freelance, or trying to find ways to increase your day rate. It might be something completely different, but the point is that growth is supposed to be personal to you. It doesn't matter if the growth goal is small. It doesn't matter if it's huge. The idea is that it is yours to own. So what I would like to do before we really get started, and before we start to step through some of these different components that we can look at to engineer growth for ourselves, I do want you to think of what that goal might be. Now, some of you may have been having these conversations in your mentor conversations so far anyway, but I want you just to fixate for 1 second on one growth goal that means something for you for the purpose of the conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm going to ask you to take just 2 minutes. I'm not going to ask you to present them back to us, but I am going to ask you to maybe talk to the person next to you about it so that it really exists in the world. If you're listening on the podcast, please get a notepad and write something down. But I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to really think about what does growth really mean to you right now. Mic running? Get some interaction. Well, I think there is one thing for sure. There's a lot of growth ambition in the room. Definitely. I could see there were some people that immediately were like quite frustrated, and there were some people that got really animated. So sounds like there's some interesting growth goals in the audience today. So I want you to think about that today as we move through these different concepts, if that's okay. And the 5 concepts that we're going to work through today is all about using your voice. This is all about agency. This is all about you being the driver of your own destiny. So we're going to dive straight in and talk about the V, which is all about visibility. And I want to introduce you to 2 people. This is Millie and this is Nancy. Yes, they are fictional, they're not in the room. But Millie and Nancy are both junior project managers. They both deliver strong work. They're highly dependable. Millie's great with numbers. Nancy's got good commercial awareness. Millie's well respected. Nancy is trusted by clients and colleagues. Both are desperate for the next step in their career. They're desperate for the next project, the next opportunity, the next promotion. So which one is ready for it? Which one's more capable? Which one is best suited for the next step in their career based on what you've seen so far? We don't know, do we? They both seem absolutely fine. I think they should both get the job personally. But if I gave you a little bit more information, if we take a look at Millie, Millie tends to keep her head down. She lets her results talk for themselves, whereas somebody like Nancy shares project outcomes with different stakeholders. She might build relationships beyond her team. She hosts a monthly lessons learned session as well. What Nancy is starting to do is put herself in the rooms where decisions start to get made, and she's giving herself an opportunity to be much more visible and for people to start advocating for the outcomes that she's driving, the work that she's doing. Is Nancy actually any better at her job? Well, we don't know, do we? We've got absolutely no idea. but she's taking action and she's putting herself in the right room. I think we all work with this myth, and I know I'm quite guilty of this. If you work hard and you do good work, you desperately hope someone's going to notice it. But sadly, working hard and working our asses off is just not enough. It's the entry fee. It's just not enough to drive us to the next level. We need to think about how we can actually drive forward with a bit of visibility, make sure that people have stories to tell about us, that we know what our contribution looks like, how valuable we've been, the stories that we can tell ourselves. If you are reliant on other people making decisions about your growth, whether that's the promotion opportunity, whether it's the next freelance project, you need to make sure that they know what you can deliver and the value that you can drive forward as well. So visibility for us is a huge, huge component. And there are so many ways that we can do that. And I've just put a couple on here for now, but I think there's lots for us to take away and for us to think about. It might be that it's about building relationships outside of our immediate team. And especially when a lot of us are working remotely still, that's actually worth its weight in gold. It might be seeking feedback from senior stakeholders. The minute that you start engaging in two-way dialogue with people that are decision makers, you get to be part of the story. It might be about speaking up in a meeting, but with a valuable contribution. Like, make sure that the thing that you're adding is actually driving something forward. It might be sharing good insights with network. This could be one of those networks that you do that with. Or it might be speaking on a panel. And some of the opportunities that people have taken today give them visibility and it makes them part of the story. So the first component that we want everybody to start thinking about is how can you start driving that visibility forward? How can you make yourself part of the story? And I think now we're going to hear a little bit from our panel about how they may have done just that.
Yeah, Jen, I'm really excited to have you here this evening. Has anyone had a listen to Jen's podcast? Just one thing. It was recorded quite a while ago, but there are a few podcast episodes that I've listened to, and I can remember exactly where I was when I was listening to it. And some of the things that you shared on that episode, sharing your career journey, really, really stuck with me. So I'm really excited that you're here to join us this evening. I know that you've had what we would describe as a squiggly career, working for some formidable brands, including Burberry, Soho House, Condé Nast, Charlotte Tilbury. You've got quite a career story to tell, so there's an invitation for everybody in the room to have a listen to Jen's podcast episode. But bringing it back to visibility, how does that really resonate for you? Can you describe a scenario in your career where you've had to elevate your visibility, and how did that play out for you?
Thank you for the kind introduction. Glad the podcast resonated.
Absolutely.
There was one, Zoe and I were talking earlier, there was one moment that stuck out to me, and it was very early in my current job at Condé Nast. So I look after the whole portfolio of brands under Condé Nast in UK, but most predominantly running the events at Vogue, which are the most frequent. And the main visibility for me was not about self-promotion. I think I'm a bit like, who is it? Nancy, and who was the other one? Millie. Hoping my work spoke for itself. But I had to speak to the whole, the kind of stakeholders in the company completely differently about events. So there's a lot of pressure when you're delivering events for such a culturally led brand, and huge iconic events that they'd run every single year purely out of habit, really. And I started talking to them about what events, how they mattered differently. We talked about the obvious things like audience growth and brand visibility, but also like commercial success and editorial storytelling that they hadn't quite considered before. It was completely led by what brand would sponsor what, basically. And we just did a lot of parties and dinners. So when I arrived, I was like, cool, what else do you do? Turns out not a lot. So we designed a whole new portfolio of formats, which, like, dare I say, it really came so easily. It was so clear to me, like, how we could tell a very different story, and under a new editorial head of editorial content, and kind of to build on that. So that was a big thing about visibility, how people talked about visibility, how our work mattered. It wasn't this executional function. It was a strategic business part of the business. I also rather boldly emailed Anna about
The Anna.
The Anna.
Yeah, and I was like, this is really cool in London. These are our results. I think you should put it in every fashion capital next Fashion Week. And she came to see this cafe format that we'd done, and she said, as she left, I want it in every fashion capital next season.
Incredible.
And we did it, and thank you. And some of those formats are now really intrinsic in the Vogue DNA globally, not just for British Vogue. And they popped up over Met Weekend in New York. It's been part of Taiwan Wellness Week. So we really tuned into some really cool new formats. But yeah, don't be Millie.
I think what I'm really hearing there is that proactivity. You didn't sit back and wait. You challenged the status quo. And what I heard you say there was that you really focused on the commercial outcomes as well. And senior stakeholders can get really excited when you say that you can change the bottom line. I mean,
speak their language. Yeah.
So that element of proactivity really helped you elevate your visibility. And I can imagine you hovering over that keyboard as you were just about to send the email. You didn't necessarily have Gemini or to sense check that, but that bold move definitely opened an opportunity for you. Brilliant.
Amazing. Well, we're going to hear from the rest of our panellists very, very shortly. We're going to move on to our next lever to pull now, and that's going to be all about opportunity. Because let's face it, a lot of us can find ourselves living in a bit more of a pick-me kind of mindset, hoping you'll get picked for promotion, hoping we'll get picked for the next opportunity. And sadly, sometimes that can result in being one of these like sad teddy bears in an arcade where sadly you don't get picked and you might get overlooked. Our industry is ridiculously competitive. It can be hard to cut through. So we need to find ways to create opportunities for ourselves where they otherwise may not exist. And that's really what I want to talk about today, is thinking about how, as opportunity creators, we can think about what it is that we could build upon, what it is that we could improve, what could we volunteer for in order to create that type of opportunity. I don't know whether you guys are aware of Issa Rae. I became aware of her because I really loved the Barbie movie, but that's not actually the highlight of her career. She found herself getting really, really frustrated as a black actress trying to find roles for people that looked like her, and she was getting beyond frustrated with that. So she decided to create an opportunity for herself, and she ended up creating her own YouTube series called Awkward Black Girl, which received loads of great success. But importantly, what it did is it created a proof point. It proved that she could create entertainment that people would watch and people were interested in. And then what followed was a book deal, and then another series, and then a production company where she then now gets to help actresses who are in the same position that she found herself in many years ago. And the kind of list goes on. And the success isn't really the part of the story that's important. It's about figuring out that there's a closed door in front of you. So how can you get through the window? How can you create an opportunity for yourself that's actually going to leverage your potential? So we need to start thinking about, what is it that I could lead? If there's nothing in front of me, what could I lead? What could I build? What problem could I solve? What people could I bring together? And we're starting to see this across the Elevate community already. People making recommendations for things, building communities, building side hustles. And that's exactly the kind of interaction that we want to start seeing. The mindset and action is, if you really want to start speaking at big profile industry events, think about where you can start sharing your thinking in another space. It might be that you can build that space yourself. It might be that you can start to join panels or podcasts or things like that, but it's about finding where the opportunity may lie. If you feel that no one's going to pick me because your experience doesn't feel quite relevant, or you feel like you don't have any experience to boot, maybe you're at the beginning of your career, how can you create some? How can you start volunteering, shadowing, doing a side hustle? It's about trying to find the window in when the door won't open for you. If we can treat growth as capability by opportunity, bearing in mind we usually feel like we have got the capability, how can we really multiply that opportunity? And if you think about the growth goal that you have in your head that you came up with before, what are the opportunities that you believe that you could actually leverage, either big or small, that may just help you get there? We're going to now speak to our panel again about the concept of opportunity.
Yeah, and I think when we come to this topic, that's where we get quite a lot of eye rolling. Oh, opportunity, create myself. How do I go about that? And I'm super excited to come to you, Mwathi, because throughout your NewGen journey, you've stood out to many of us as somebody that is super proactive, super hungry, is prepared to push yourself out of your comfort zone to go after what you want. So how does this piece for you really resonate as someone who's quite early in your career? What's easy or hard about going after what you want and kind of what's worked for you? I'd love to hear your perspective here.
Thank you very much for that. And yeah, very excited to be here. So I think for me, there's like two sides to the coin, which was I've always been someone that was creative, but I never had the opportunity to explore that in the capacity I would like to. And then, so I was studying at uni, I was doing a HNC in sports and exercise science, and I come from like a more football and sports background, and that's something I loved, but with the theory side, it wasn't something I enjoyed so much. So at that time, lockdown came around as well, so I had took the HNC qualification but didn't go on to do the second year, and then I was lockdown came, and then I was unemployed for a bit, and I was at a crossroads of like where I actually wanted to go in my career, and I wasn't sure where I wanted to go next, but I was like, creativity is one thing, so it was either like sports and football or creativity, but I didn't know how to explore that. So it was when I was unemployed, and then I was at the job centre speaking to my work coach, and she was like, okay, there's a creative course, check this out. From that was the first time I actually got the chance to have a program or course where there was some opportunity for free and allowed to explore that, which was just talking about some of the different possibilities in music. From there, it was meeting someone, they told me about another course, and that was in like 2023. So I think across the last 3 years, it was basically just every course, every program, every opportunity to volunteer, basically doing that. And across that kind of, it became then that I started to see, okay, how can I utilize the opportunities that are actually there for me? I think where I am specifically in Brent, I didn't really know what was available, but there is a lot of resources for 18 to 25-year-olds. And then through that, one of my purposes was to try and help others. So for about a year, and then 2 years in terms of like creative group chats, my whole thing was sharing opportunities and events with other people and having a series with that. So I think I would be coming across all these opportunities and everything. And coming from a music background, one of the key things is about talent development. So I thought, let me look at myself as a professional, as a talent as well. So I went back to uni, and I was like, cool, I've got 3 years, which I'm just finishing my degree now, some source of income, some information and knowledge, and some flexibility to try and explore as many programs and courses as I can. So it was taking all the opportunities I can get. Also, when I started to look at the opportunities, then becoming more precise, okay, there's this course there, there's this course there, how much is that actually of value to me? And I think upskilling myself to a point where I was like, okay, I now can give feedback on the courses because I've done so many that I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. And then it became that actually, okay, now I can create my own opportunities because I've got the experience of being in these places and being like, okay, this is missing, this is not missing. And then I'm like, cool, I feel confident in my ability now that I can create my own opportunities. So I was doing a program. It was like some funding, training. So yeah, I think I've just said yes to everything. But that's hosting, funding, acting, events production. And then on it, I was like, are you guys documenting this? They said no. And I was like, do you want me to do some content? Like just vlogging my day in the life. And then from that, got to work basically as their paid social media content creator. So I think, yeah, there's a load of opportunities out there. My advice would be, first, explore and look. I think the first step is finding, there's a lot of great pages that actually will curate the opportunities for you. Find what you think is valuable to you. I think take the opportunities you need to get to the level you are. And then I think just look at creating your own opportunities. From me, like creating those videos and series that then connected me with a lot of organizations, your network as well. Even the opportunity to be a part of Elevate was from the fact that just going to an event, and I've said this before, but meeting Max, asking a question, meeting Max, and then this has opened a whole nother door, getting to host, getting to do interviews with Elevate, getting to be involved in the NewGen program. So I think it is just, I was from a place of where I was unemployed, had nothing there. And then I think once I found that first thing and was like, okay, I'm going to be as active as I can, finding opportunities, doors started to open.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to add there that, you know, what I'm hearing there is you went from a place of complete ambiguity to a place of clarity, and the way that you did that was through engagement. And Nic and I always say that clarity comes from engagement, not thought. And if you stay stuck in your head, you get that paralysis by over-analysis. And actually, fair play to you, you got out there, you found out, you discovered, you were curious and hungry for it. Just one final little snippet from you then, in terms of on a bad day, like none of this is super easy, like on a bad day, how do you overcome that, where you feel like not feeling it today? What's your perspective there?
Yeah, I think sometimes we can look at the big wins and the big things, but I think it is just like, also for me as a creative, it's like using your creativity to see like, okay, you might be like, oh, I've applied for this events program, or I applied for this role, I didn't get it. But I think sometimes it is just flipping your perspective and looking like, okay, your friend was trying to plan a birthday, they were struggling, and you've come along and you've brought this theme of costume design. Like, there's actually probably a lot more experience and things you can do. So I think sometimes it might be, we look at the opportunities for the things we're applying for, and if we don't get them, it can be disheartening. But I think look at the opportunities you've created and the things you've done, and I think once you understand how to pitch that and share that with others, you'll be able to better understand your value. And I think there is ups and downs, so just know there'll be seasons where there is a lot, seasons where there's not, but I think if you're proactive, you're creative, you'll make it work.
Brilliant, thank you so much, that's so interesting.
Thank you so much for that story. I love being inspired by people at the early stages of their career. I think there's so much that everybody can take away from that. So thank you so much. The next concept that I want to talk about is all about intentionality. I want you to take a look at this calendar. I was going to show you my calendar, but I thought you'd all get a bit scared. I don't know about you, but I find it quite hard to balance all of the commitments that are in my diary. I have 5 different client calendars all running at once, mum of 2. I like to generally be present for social engagements as well. It gets really difficult, and I'm sure everybody in this room can probably relate to that in one way, shape or form. But I want you to start thinking about your calendar, and I want you to start thinking about what it says about what you're prioritizing and what you're choosing in life. What types of projects are you saying yes to? What kind of tasks and activities are you driving forward? What are you maybe letting go of as a result of driving those things forward? What is the true cost for you of saying yes to everything that you're currently saying yes to? I'm definitely a bit of a people pleaser. I've definitely got far closer to burnout than I probably should have done by saying yes to more things than I should have done. The price or the cost to you might look something different, but the important thing is thinking about what it is that we want and trying to be really intentional about that activity. How often have we just got lost in just going through the motions, going from step to step, and not taking that opportunity to zoom out and really thinking about, where is this activity driving me, and what am I potentially going to lose as a result of it? Now, this is not about time management. This is about prioritizing what we want out of our career, because if we don't take the space and we don't think about what that looks like, nobody else is going to do it for us. I want to talk to you a little bit about Emma Grade. I don't know whether many of you have seen, but Emma Grade's taken a lot of heat in the press recently. For those of you that don't know her, she's a co-founder of the underwear brand Skims and Good American, which is a jeans brand in kind of partnership with some of the Kardashian sisters. There's no denying she's an incredibly successful woman on the Forbes list, like multi-millionaire. And she's been in the press a lot recently because she's talking about the honest sacrifices that need to be made to reach the level of success that she's had to make. She talks a lot about trade-offs. She's a mum of 4, but she doesn't do packed lunches, and she doesn't go to school drop-offs, and she doesn't go to the school Christmas party, and she's got no idea when own clothes day is. And she's really, really honest about that. And there are plenty of people that are giving her a lot of criticism for the sacrifices and the trade-offs that she has chosen to make. And whether or not you agree with those trade-offs, I think the important part of the conversation is, actually, trade-offs are usually necessary in order for us to get to where we want. And having some honesty and some permission and agency about that, I think is actually quite liberating, because the fact of the matter is, You can have everything, but you can't have it all at once. And we need to start making some very clever decisions about how we want to spend our time and how intentionality shapes us. And what that might look like is choosing flexibility over status. It might be that actually it's about acceleration for you right now, rather than achieving balance and being okay about what that looks like. It might be that it's about choosing family over that acceleration. It might be that it's about picking the right project rather than the easy project. For Emma, it's more about perfect presentations than it is about perfect packed lunches. I think it's important for us all to start thinking about what are the trade-offs that are appropriate and good for you to make based on the career goals that you actually want. So think about your calendar, picture it in your mind. What does that tell you about what it is that you're choosing? How does that actually align with the growth goal that you've set for yourself? And what is it that you're willing to trade off in order to get there? Because there is a trade-off that needs to be made. And there's probably many of us, probably those that are maybe parents in the room, or those that have really wanted to prioritize a life of travel, that have really had to grapple with what that looks like. And I think the more we talk about that, the more we make it okay for that to be a thing.
Yeah, Jen, I want to come back to you here because going back to your podcast, it occurred to me that there were some very clear junctures in your career journey and some choices that you had to make. And you talk on the podcast about combining your passions and purpose with your career in events. So how does that resonate? Can you give us a little example of where that choice has led to something?
Yes, I think I became really aware that I was loving working on the event side of things, and I'd done like PR marketing, like a bit of a mix around it, but I wasn't enjoying it. It was like the product that I was involved in wasn't the thing that was kind of getting me fired up. And I knew I wanted to move into the fashion industry, and I was currently doing a maternity leave cover at Comic Relief. It was completely non-related. And I had met a recruiter actually a year or so before and explained I was trying to make this transition, and I was very actively looking for those opportunities, and this particular role wasn't advertised at Burberry. Anyway, I ended up finding someone who knew someone sort of through this recruiter and applied for the role, and I was 100% the wild card, maybe even out of desperation did they see me. I had no place being in that interview room. And I knew it. I could feel it. They were like, who's this Jen girl who... They must have looked at my CV and thought, why am I wasting my time basically sitting in this room? And I knew... Because I knew that. I think I knew I had to talk about my experience and my attitude and my mindset and what I could bring. And again, it's a bit like speaking the language that they're then going to understand. And I was very intentional with the examples I gave and the work that I was doing and why I was interested felt I belonged in that industry. And needless to say, I got the job, but I even remember when it was my first day and there's this big department meeting and they introduced me, and I remember feeling the side eyes of where's she from? Basically didn't have this is Jen from Dior, it was completely random that I was there. And I remember feeling it and knowing I had something that I was going to have to prove, basically. But I absolutely went after that job and put my hand up for everything. And I remember even being in a meeting room when certain events over in Asia, in Hong Kong, were tanking, and my boss said, how soon can you get on a plane? And I left that afternoon. You're that kind of person in that stage of your career, I suppose. And if you're there, it's a wonderful stage of your career where you have fewer responsibilities. I'm currently on maternity leave with my second, and it's hard. The juggle is really hard, and I definitely am looking for a greater sense of purpose and intentionality with my next move. I don't really know what that's going to be yet, in all honesty, because your value of time changes. But yeah, that story is, I definitely didn't belong in that room.
And I imagine if we looked at your CV, you'd see these amazing opportunities, but I think it's really important for us to remember the action that you had to take and the hunting down and the pushing out of your comfort zone that really goes behind it.
I would say as well, you have to build up a durability to hearing no. Like, just get used to hearing no, because then you're not scared of it and you'll just keep asking the questions and you're doing it in the right way and you get better at asking the questions, if that makes sense. You become more refined and knowing, okay, that worked, that didn't work so well, but you got to build up a bit of that resistance so you're not scared of it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so now we're on to our C, career capital. So what is a career capital all about? Career capital is our ability to really pay attention to all the things that go into our career journeys. So thinking about our knowledge, our skills and competencies, our core skills, all of the experience that we have, and we may not necessarily have loads of work experience in our early stages of our career specifically, but we've all got life experience that we can draw on. Mwathi, it resonated there where you said that you'd offered to organise your friend's birthday party. Like, we can all draw on these life experiences and pull them together. But really this is about us focusing on the added value that we bring. What do we bring to the table? And from that we can create endorsements, testimonials and case studies. We all have a network, we all have people that we can talk to, and in our career stories shared so far, we can hear those really coming through. I knew somebody that knew somebody. You all know somebody in this room. Somebody will know somebody, and that's how doors are opened through our network. And then we have our personality traits, and that really helps to shape our professional credibility. So it doesn't matter where you are in your career journey, everybody has career capital. And it's something that is so transferable. No business or brand can own your career capital. Only you can own it. And when I'm working in the coaching space with many different clients, what I find is that their career capital's all over the place. They have no idea how to really articulate and package it up into a compelling narrative or story. And I think when we think about personal brand, we can get quite overwhelmed, like it's this big, scary thing. But actually, it's about being able to tell your career story and being able to tell others about the impact that you add. And I've worked in the recruitment space, having to recruit people through my career. I've also coached people, and I can often look at their CVs and see this incredibly vanilla CV, which is really boring and dull. And then I get to know the person behind the CV, and there they are, that knickerbocker glory with all of the sprinkles and pistachio nuts and cherry on the top. And I'm like, I cannot believe that the CV is telling a completely different perspective, or their LinkedIn profile. So learning how to package yourself, how to sell your career story, that added value that you add, what you bring to the table is so incredibly important. And you can see two examples here. Young Theo, starting out in his career, he's a student. He started as a pot washer at a wedding venue and got the opportunity to wait on. So essentially a waiter. But how do you create that connection back to the events industry? It's all about how you polish the opportunity. So, responsible for the delivery of all aspects of the guest experience in the venue according to the venue standards, effectively communicating and prioritising tasks in a high-pressure environment. Putting a little spin on it and relating it back to events and live experiences is really important and can be really helpful in opening doors. Annabelle, who sadly isn't here today, we put a call out to our freelance community to share some CVs and portfolios, and Annabelle can see here. I mean, you only need to take one quick look at her CV and you know that Annabelle is the real deal, that she can actually deliver. You can see the brands that she's worked on. She's really drawing out her skills and expertise. I'd take a quick look at that and I'd give Annabelle a call. The other thing is about how we tell our story. And, we work in a creative industry, so having a visual portfolio can be really helpful. And again, when I suggest this to some of the people that I work with, I get that eye roll of, God, I could never do that. But it's easy to look at that and think that that is an incredibly big piece of work. But if you break it down, do a little bit piece by piece and make it a bit of a labour of love, make it your opportunity to tell your story, then it really can can be a really compelling way of owning your career capital. You can see the wonderful Anna Cottle here, who's got her own portfolio online. She's got some wonderful case studies, and then she's backed it up with an Instagram account. Now, I know that can seem overwhelming, but as I say, if you break it down, create a bit of a labour of love. It's not selfish to focus on yourself. It's not selfish to focus on telling your career story, having evidence of the impact and the skills and capabilities that you have. And I think these examples really clearly demonstrate the power of that. I think you talk about this in your podcast, Jen, don't you? Own your own gold. Like, your career capital is yours. No one else can take it away from you. So unless you own it, no one else will do that for you. I'm going to come to you, Sarah. I know that you have also made the transition. You've been at a juncture in your career, and we were lucky enough to work together on that. You made a brave move from the world of charity, where you were absolutely smashing it. But I know at that particular time you had quite a lot of limiting beliefs about how to make that transition into the world of agency. So how does this notion of career capital kind of speak to you, and how's that played out in your career?
Yeah, definitely. So about kind of 15 years ago, I had been in the charity sector where, the world was known to me and I got really stuck in and I loved it. But I did want to kind of move into the agency side. And I thought, great, let's go for it. Kind of quite naively, how hard could it be? But I found that I was looking at kind of job applications and job roles in a very linear way, because I felt very stuck. The language just was different. What was being asked of you on job descriptions just sounded different. And I thought, in a very kind of imposter syndrome way, gosh, I haven't done that. That's not something I've done. They'll find me out. That's not me. And I really did look at it in a very kind of, one way, and really focusing on what I hadn't done, and it felt very transactional. So I felt stuck, and that's where I met the lovely Zoe, and she became my career coach. And from that outside perspective looking in was helping me to realise my potential and my value. The words personal brand or career capital, never ever heard of. It sounded very weird. And it was just trying to figure out, what do I bring to the table? What have I done? What achievements have I made? And not in a cocky way, not in an arrogant way, that's my story, and we all have that to tell. And I think when you articulate that well, you actually start to realise, gosh, I have done stuff, and, it might be quite different, but you still have that value and something to bring to the table. And when you start to articulate that well, you've then built up a little bit more confidence about. So the language might be different, but I still have the experience of this and that, and I'd love to bring that into play. And really breaking that down and seeing your value in that way then opens up a lot more. I found I wasn't just looking at jobs that had a title that I recognised, for example. And it sounds silly, but I'm sure a lot of us have, looked at a job description and thought, gosh, there's loads of things here that I'm not quite sure about. But when you reframe it and think, well, I've had the experience and I've achieved this, and that translates to a different, it's transferable skills. The industry we're in is so transferable. And it gave me confidence, and I thought I can then confidently go in and explain. It might look different on my CV to what you're expecting, but this is what I've done, and this is what I'm proud of, and this is where I want to go. And that just completely changed my viewpoint, and the confidence to go in was what I needed. And to your point, there might be no's, but it doesn't then mean a no the next time. It means, great, let's look at other positions.
Yeah, and I think there's that analogy of you can't read the label from inside the jar. At that particular point, you were so close to it, you just couldn't see the incredible things that you'd deliver. And what occurred to me was hearing your story of the charity and the incredible things that you'd delivered, the amount of money that you'd raised, and, not with big budgets and great big production values, the amount of impact that you'd created, I thought, was so incredibly transferable, and that was the thing that we kind of really focused on. But when you're so close to it, it's really difficult to see, and that's where the power of mentoring, having somebody that's slightly removed from your situation, can see things in you and impact that you've created that you may not see for yourself. So that's a really good example of how to own your career capital. But the opportunity to work with somebody else with a different perspective can be super powerful in this space.
Yeah, and also where you kind of see, like looking at those CVs, you're positioning it in the same way. You're not making stuff up. You're not, fudging numbers. It's about selling yourself, because you're the one that will sell yourself. No one else will. You go into an interview, they're not selling you. They're not looking at your CV. So you want to be confident about that.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Right, we're at the final stretch, guys. So I want you all just to really briefly think about the biggest growth leap that you've made so far. That might have been kind of going for your first role. It might have been diving into the freelance pool. It might have been a big interview. And just want you to mentally think, how ready did you feel for that opportunity? Did you feel like you were like 10 out of 10, feeling like super ready? Did you feel like you were a 1? Super ready. I'm loving the confidence. Loving the confidence. The fact of the matter is, we feel all stages of readiness, don't we? And actually, one thing, and similar to what we've just been talking about, one thing that can really jump in are those limiting beliefs, feeling that we're not quite ready for the opportunity that's in front of us. And we think of a great deal of reasons as to why that might be the case. It might be that, well, as soon as I feel more confident, then I'll do it. Or when I just get something across the line, then I'll do it. I'm working on something quite interesting at the moment, and I'm desperately trying to perfect it before it goes out to anybody, which is not me following my own advice. And we definitely need to think less about building up the confidence before we take action, when actually it's quite often the action that leads to the evidence that then leads us to the confidence we need in order to move forward. So how can we start thinking about collecting evidence so that we can build that confidence up? And I think one of the best ways that we can do that is actually starting off quite small. It's not necessarily about big swinging leaps, diving into a complete big career change. It's about really testing the market. It's about putting our scientist hat on and figuring out what works and what doesn't, and really engaging in what I like to call career experiments. And what should a good career experiment look like? Well, it should be something that's actually quite small, so you actually get started. If you make it too big, you'll never get it done. And it should genuinely be connected to the growth goal that you have for yourself, so that it can start to move you a little bit closer towards it. The stakes have to be quite low, because you want to be able to cock this up if needed. If that's the actual lesson that needs to be learned here, you want to make sure that you didn't completely derail your entire career. It should really be challenging an assumption that you have. I think I would be great at leadership. I think I would be great going freelance. And it should be an experiment that allows you to genuinely collect some data. Actually, the outcome here is not about success. When you think about people that are interested in science and experimenting, it's not about getting it right first time around. It's about tweaking as we go. It's about learning as we go and collecting data about what worked, what didn't, so that we can improve for the future. So if we land on that example of feeling like I'm not leadership material, a career experiment might just be leading a working group. It might be mentoring somebody. It might be taking on a new project and making sure that you're the lead role for that. And the questions that you're asking yourself is, did I actually enjoy that? Or was it not for me at all? Because we can lean into something that we think that we want, and it turns out actually we didn't want it at all. Did people actually follow me? Am I a leader? Have I got natural leadership capability? My ability to bring everybody on a journey, is that something that I'm good at naturally, or is that something that I would need to work on? Can I actually influence outcomes? Can I make things happen? And this is where you start to really engage in interesting conversations with yourself. This is where I think you can engage in really interesting conversations with your mentor or your mentee as well, and really think about what's working well and what's not, and really engaging in that slightly more experimental mindset. So I want to ask you all to think about, what is it, if you're not feeling ready, what is it that you're not feeling ready for? And what's the smallest experiment that you could do, that you could maybe run in, say, the next month or next 6 months, which would help you start testing that theory to really assess whether or not this is something that you want, something that you're good at, or something that you should just throw in the bin. So We've reached the end, pretty much anyway. Before we let you go, we want you to think about these 5 different concepts that we've shared with you today. The idea is that this is not a process, this isn't a framework, it's not a step-by-step guide. These are options, and these are only 5 options of 100 options we could have chosen. The point that I want you to take away today is you have agency. You have more control, and you're able to pull on the levers that work for the growth goal that you have set for yourself. So really think about that goal that you landed on at the very beginning of the session. What is it that you need to do more of? What is it that you need to pull back from in order to move forward towards that goal? Just take 2 minutes to have a little think about that between yourselves. And again, we're going to ask people to share. If you want to share, you can share. But I definitely want you to share with the person next to you, if that's okay. I'm just going to give you 2 minutes, if that's okay.
Okay, let's bring it back. So we're keen to hear from you. What one lever has resonated? Is anybody willing to share? Hands up. Any volunteers? Anyone feeling brave? The lady over there. If you take the mic, introduce yourself, please. We'd love to hear.
Hi, I'm Molly. What we were speaking about was a lot to do with visibility. Like, I think I'm really bad at kind of shouting out about myself and shouting about my wins. And I think lots of times I'm just kind of hoping that someone's just going to notice my work. And I think I just need to be a lot more vocal about what I'm doing and why I'm doing, so then other people can see that and recognise that to kind of help with my growth.
Thanks for sharing, Molly. I'm just going to bring in Jen here, because in the podcast you talk about when you were learning to ride a Vespa and your husband said, take up the road, Jen, because the other people on the road need to
see
know
me,
you're there.
literally see me for safety. I think it doesn't really does it make sense if you've not listened to the story? It's not.
Quickly share it, yeah.
It's just a metaphor, basically. But I was learning to ride a Vespa and kept veering off to the left, like near the cycle lane, because I think I was used to riding a bike. And my husband was like, Jen, get in the middle of the road. Like, no one's going to see you. And you've got to... And then he made me once, like, bib the horn. I used to hate bibbing the horn. And he'd be like, okay, on your way to work today, you have to toot your horn 3 times, and set me this challenge. And he was like, even if you're just on a road, an empty road, which never happens in London, you just got to toot the horn, because I had to get used to hearing like myself. And it's kind of mad how that training, like, it is a really good metaphor for, you got to kind of get used to hearing your own voice a bit, Molly. And just like, sometimes I think like all the influencers are so good at doing it, and how do they do it, and what have I got to say and all that. But you got to get used to hearing your own voice and seeing and be a bit more visible. So yeah, we'll learn to ride a Vespa. It's a good way to do it.
Okay, anyone else want to share the lever they're going to pull? This gentleman here. Introduce yourself. Yeah, go for it.
Hello, my name's T, and actually, I'll take the opportunity to do one right now. Hi, my name's T. To loads of people who do not know me, I'm a junior producer, and I'm currently looking for something and to network. And we're here drinking, so please get me on LinkedIn. Let's have a chat. I think I'm pretty capable of it. I feel more capable now I've stood up and done this. And the other one I would say was experimentation. I have been a junior for 4 years, and I have a creative bone. I have ideas, and I just don't work on them. I just do not do them, and I think it's about time that I do. But if anyone has any advice, that'd be great.
Okay, I think we've got. Thank you, T, for sharing that and for putting yourself out there. That's amazing. Time for one more. Anyone else? One last example. This lady here.
I'll sit down. That's fine. I think it's more.
Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Oh no. No. Hi, I'm the girl with the afro. My name is Naomi, by the way. I'm also looking for work, similar to that gentleman over there. But I think more of it's my confidence. I'm passionate, I'm ambitious. The no's that you were saying earlier, I can't do it because it's like, oh, just give me a chance. I can prove myself and work hard. And the no's, this is becoming, it used to make me crash out, but now it's like, it's expected now. The long mentality of my thing was like, I couldn't get a job because of situations. And now it's like, no, I can get a job, I can do it. I just need that chance. So it's more of my confidence, I have the ideas, it's me putting myself forward. I'm so scared of failing. That's what's stopping me. My family says to me, oh, Naomi, just do your own business. You've got 2 degrees, you got masters, you can do it. And I'm like, but I failed at not getting a job and staying in a job. So if I do it by myself and I found my own business, that would break me more than anything. So it's my confidence that is blocking me. I know it, I'm proud to say it, it's sad, but I'm working on it. Bye now.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Naomi. That's a really good example of how you are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I think what I heard there is focusing on possibly some of the negative evidence, and yet, you know, there's so many positive evidential points that you can reflect on, even in that little snippet that you shared. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that. And I could hear the empathy of everyone in the room, and definitely lean on that in your Elevate journey. But thank you for sharing.
Hi everyone, my name is Trini, I'm a spatial designer. One question I have for all of you, and you can answer however you feel, whoever resonates with this, is more about perception, and I think that's been a running theme for everybody and all the, like anybody who's spoken on the mic, but how to handle that cross between, yes, your CV has all these amazing things, I've been in the industry for a decade, but I think the only reason for why I came into this mentoring process was I'm not seeing myself the way my CV is showing up. And even though I've done amazing things, or what has been said has been amazing, but I think similar to you, in terms of all I've done is just knocked on every single door. Like, I've just done everything and anything. So everything has just been about moving and pushing and chasing, but not actually looking at all the things that have actually happened in that process. So when do you, or have you ever felt to get to that point where you're not just chasing, but you're actually owning and feeling confident in the thing that you're actually pursuing or doing? I don't know if that's really your question, but yeah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think with what you were saying, I think in my journey there was a point, where there was like a mindset shift of like, okay, I've taken enough opportunities that are available in terms of like, okay, this is a course that will give me this, and now it's like I'm taking certain opportunities or looking for the opportunities or creating the space for that to come to me. So I think with what you were saying as well, I think one of the big things with that was actually when I started my LinkedIn. And I think even for me, it was just a personal reminder of like after projects, putting it and in chronological order, then looking back and being like, actually, there is some record of what I've been doing, how I've been doing it. And I think with all you've been doing, I think like you guys said, like no one's going to speak about it as much as you, but I think it's understanding. And sometimes, when you are so busy doing it, you don't take the time to reflect and look how much of an asset you are. And I think it is looking back at all the projects, noting down all the skills, all your wins, and being like, if I was to put myself in this company or these roles, what can I offer? And I think that's when your perspective changes. And I think a lot of the results I saw was then when I started to go into rooms, although I'm passionate about getting this opportunity, I also know that the value I bring and that they need people that can provide as well and add to their companies and stuff. So I think when I started to see that and like actually the way I think, whether that's with my dyslexia or creativity or thing, it's actually valuable. So I think, taking the time or having a place to actually see that and realizing your own value.
I think as well, your perception is, it depends like what your goal is. Like what like, why do you ask, is what I was going to ask back to you, is are you struggling to know what's next, or are you, because I think your perception of what you do is like what you do is not a vanity project, you know. Like I can tell stories of Vogue, or like when I've emailed Anna or whatever, but it doesn't mean anything unless it means something to me, or if it's the perception of it or what I'm doing. I'm much prouder to talk about the impact that some of the events I've done, or communities that we've built around it, or a narrative we've been able to shift or something. But so if I can ask the question back, like why do you ask?
I know if my mentor was here, would be like, you got to speak about this on the mic, so I'm going to speak about it on the mic. Something that I've been wanting to do, and I thought I was going to do it in a decade's time, was actually to start a studio of my own. And it will be a spatial design and cultural strategist studio, and really just touching on anything and everything that resonates with people on a deeper level, not just from the aesthetic of what a space will look like, but just really delving into how people actually feel. My background's in architecture. I've worked with Adidas, I've worked with so many brands. So it's like people who know me personally will be like, what are you talking about? You shouldn't actually feel the things that you're feeling. But I think as someone who has, it wasn't handed to me. Like everything I'm talking about absolutely was not given to me on a plate. So it's almost like even hearing about doors being closed for yourself, like every single door has absolutely been closed, and I just kept pushing. So for my mentor to kind of tell me like, it's actually time for you to actually build a studio because you've got the experience to do that thing. But that perception is an actual like flip on the head, because I'm like, but this was literally built mostly in my bedroom. And it's kind of like become something that I can actually help and impact other people. So I think it's more of that I'm actually stepping into a role that feels bigger than me, but I know I've got to do it at the same time.
Yeah, and I think you speak so beautifully about it, and you speak very eloquently about your story, and that will resonate. Like I'm sure it's resonated with everyone today, but I don't know if this is really simple advice, and I wanted to say the same to Naomi as well, but it doesn't have to be such a big deal, is all I would say. Like, just start. Don't announce it as, this is my big business with this name and this logo and this big shiny brand. It doesn't have to be that. Just start. And like, maybe it's one person who you connect with, or even if there's not a client there, but you just start sharing stuff, or post references of things that you love and why, and have a point of view on it, and just see how it feels. A bit like we were saying, like have the experiment, like Nic was saying, but maybe don't think of it as like, it's not a big deal yet. Just treat it as a bit of a side hustle or something. I don't know, try and find a way to take a bit of the pressure off, maybe.
It doesn't feel like a side hustle.
Yeah, no, I know, you're working 24 hours on it. But you know, try not for it to overtake, I think, would be my advice. And I'm glad I asked, because it's a gorgeous story. You should do it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. So, we're going to call it time there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories, for using the platform like that. That is 100% what we want people to be doing. That's what this community is all about. There is not a more supportive community than the people in this room. So please do have the conversations, take advantage of the opportunities, like engage with people. That is exactly what this is built on and what it is all about. So please, please, please do engage fully. I'm just going to leave you with this. No one is going to own your growth more than you. I just want that to land for 1 second. Nobody is going to own it more than you do. So what's your next move?
Elevate operates thanks to the generosity of our global headline partners, Amplify, Seed and Wonder. Our global partners are Cvent, Identity, First, Illusion, Inconf, Powwow, PSP and the production department. Our partners are the Assemble Group, Castle Bell, Curious Nation and Jimmy Garcia Catering. Our venue partner is White Rabbit Studios, our training partner is Special Source Training, and our people and culture partners are Zoe Tuffs from Times 10 Coaching and Nic Neal. Together we're changing lives, careers and the events industry for the better. Our sound engineer is
me, Matteo Magariello,
and our producer is me, Peter Kerwood. This podcast was recorded at White Rabbit Studios in Shoreditch.